Good evening and welcome to Inferno TV, the first programme of the 2015-16 season. And joining me today on the sofa is Aled and John, you probably recognise from the excellent Devils webcast. Good evening, chaps. Thanks for coming.
Good evening to you, John.
Nice to see you.
Yep. I think we should start off maybe with having a chat about our current team. See what you think about that, a general overview, how you think the forward lines look. Maybe start from there.
Yeah, well, we've got to be reasonably nice, of course, because we sit quite close to the ice to do the webcast. So we've already had a few pucks from Tyson Marsh fly our way. So we've got to be...
John's not enjoying it, so he's already taken his mic out.
But there's no reason not to be nice there, because I think we're all very delighted with the team that Andrew Lord, Todd Kelman, Neil Francis have put together. And looks like it's going to be an exciting year from starting with the forwards.
Yeah, I think sort of during the summer there was a lot of speculation about how the lines would look, and with such continuity of players returning, we knew a lot of what to expect from our players, and that made the summer guessing a lot more fun in terms of balance and who was going to go where. I think most of us got it wrong in that we thought probably Lee Salters was going to slip into that, maybe that what we'd labelled as the first line with Thomas Kirker and Doucette. But then Andrew Lord sort of sprung a surprise along with Franny and Jamie Elson, and Salters has gone on to what I suppose is described as the third unit, but isn't really a third unit, but the balance of the lines look very, very good.
Yeah, so Joey came in late on Friday, was it? Mm-hmm. Then played on the weekend. How do you think he did?
Haddad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry Joey Martin. Joey Haddad, you're right.
You're on first name terms, John.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yeah. Well, Joe and Joey, So.
Well, I mean, he was superb, wasn't he? I think we've seen that a little bit with players coming in with jet lag, and they just sort of perform on adrenaline like that. And he fitted perfectly into that top line, and the balance looks great, doesn't it?
It really does. We mentioned in commentary on both the Saturday and the Sunday. It was fantastic of him, real character performance, just playing off adrenaline. I bet he was exhausted Monday morning. But really just the balance of that line, that he cycles the puck so well, he goes to the corners, but he's also a goal scorer, so he brings a little bit of everything. But more than anything, he creates room for Kirker and Doucette. Kirker just dishes the puck very, very well and has got that incredible speed on the transition. And Doucette's a goal scorer, so that line's got a little bit of everything. And I imagine it must be quite a scary line to try and shut down.
Yeah, and it's kind of with the new players coming in and slotting into those two lines that we've talked about. It's easy to forget about obviously the line that stayed the same. That was the big line for the Devils last year, and has the Devils leading points man on it, and top scorer with Joey Martin, and then Morissette as well, who was just a revelation. And of course the captain or coach Marvel, Andrew Lord as well, who's just a top six forward on any team in this league, and also looking like he's developing, if not already, into one of the finest coaches. He
does look to be an excellent coach, doesn't he? I've had feedback from other people saying that they're very impressed with Lord's coaching. So comparing to last season, do you think that the Doucette and Kirker are the sort of players we were missing last season? Maybe. We know he had a fantastic season last year, but obviously Doucette's ability in front of the net, he's a natural scorer.
Well, we've had this discussion, I think, a little bit in kind of our pre-game and during the game chats on the webcast, and this is kind of a strange comment from me because I think we were the leading scorers in the league last year, but I felt that we maybe missed a clutch goal scorer, and we spoke about War in Sheffield. He scored big goals at big times in games that could break games open. And whilst our team was fantastic last year, I just wonder whether we slightly missed a character like that. And I think Doucette is that character. I think when there are tight games on the line, and hopefully come the end of the season, we're in games where you're competing for trophies, I think he's the type of player who can score a big goal at a big moment. It's kind of an intangible thing. You can't really put your finger on it, but you just get the impression he is a big game player.
Well, and also that can kind of lead a little bit into other members of the team as well, because it was interesting over the weekend. Obviously, we won both the games, which we'll touch on in a moment. But you had against Manchester, it was a very even game, and then you had that sort of moment where there was just those 3 goals that just happened like that, and that's something I think we're going to do to a few teams this season, even if we're not at our best. And then against Sheffield, obviously we looked to play a relatively defensive game once we had that 2-goal advantage. As soon as they scored, we were able to go up the other end of the ice and score as well. So I think that's there's so much firepower. That's the biggest thing about the forwards, I think, just to round that off, is that, as you said before, there's 3 lines which could all be a top line there.
Yes.
And, we're predicting, if each of those players are predicted probably to get in the region of 20 goals or more, which takes the team over 200, when you don't even count people like Hotham then on D, and that takes, it's a phenomenal amount of goals which would break what we got last year, which was the highest in the league.
And this makes the 4-line hockey argument quite interesting, because if in terms of line matching and things like that, and it's great. I think the British ice hockey is looking to take that next step to go to 4 lines. But at the moment, maybe if you roll a 4-line shift, if you're a Braehead or something, you might be rolling it out against the Thomas Kirker, Doucette, and
it could be risky.
Haddad line. So in itself, it's quite risky. So having those 3 punchy scoring units gives a lot of options, and also puts doubt in the mind, I think, of opposition coaches.
Well, Sheffield had a 4th line, didn't they, on Sunday?
Yeah.
I'm not sure they saw more than 2 or 3 shifts.
I think about 3 shifts, and certainly not a lot in the 3rd period. Yeah.
No, I think it was too risky to put them out.
Yeah.
So if we move on from the forwards, we could maybe talk about the D unit, which has remained the same as last year to all intents and purposes, apart from obviously some of the guys have recovered from injuries, and they look like they've retrained hard through the summer. Like Trevor's coming in and he's looking very fit, very in shape. Josh Batch obviously has been putting on a serious amount of muscle, doing some serious training. What do you think of the D unit?
Well, again, it was a surprise, wasn't it? Because we were all expecting it to be exactly the same as last year, and it is in terms of personnel, and you've still got Hotham and Richardson there as that pairing, but then the changes with the other 2.
Yeah, what is it? Hendricks is going with the captain now. Is going with Tyson and Hudson and Batch, and it's quite interesting. Certainly in the commentary, looking at how those pairings are playing. I think with the Hendricks Marsh combination, I think Marsh is a good anchor for that. For that pairing. Hendricks can play tough, but he's got Mr. Responsible, Mr. Consistency next to him, who can. Just level him down at certain times when he needs to. And the Batch and Hudson combination, I think we like the look of. They can both do a little bit of everything. Obviously, Batch is very, very strong. He clears the net. But I think people underestimate his offensive side. He can jump into the play. And Hudson's just such a smooth skater. And if it wasn't for Andrew Hotham, probably would have been the outstanding defenseman last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, I suppose, obviously we've seen Batch join the rush a little bit as well, but it does provide a little bit more balance potentially in that, with that Marsh-Hendricks pair, and you've got, Marsh who's, quite comfortable with getting involved, in the offense as well. So there's that little bit of threat there, rather than perhaps where we had almost a complete shutdown pairing of Hendricks and Batch last year.
Yeah.
And then obviously with Hudson and Batch, that's giving Batch a little bit more perhaps responsibility as well, because Hudson, is going to have that license to go and jump into the play, but the confidence being shown in Batch there to be able to read the game as well and make those in-game decisions when it's right to jump up, or when you can see Hudson going and then sort of staying back, and the coach having faith in him to provide that defensive anchor on that unit.
Couldn't agree more. And you've got to. It would be remiss of us not to flag up Mark Richardson, because I think he often gets forgotten when we talk about. People doing this and doing that and jumping into the play and the stats and the scoring, what have you, because you just know what you're going to get from him every game. I'm sure Andrew Hotham would be the first one to say that Mark Richardson makes him a better player on that lineup. Again, someone who he's not the most physical guy in the world, but he's just got hockey intelligence. His positioning is very good, getting in the passing lanes. His skating ability is second to none. So sometimes gets overlooked, although I'm sure every Devils fan is excited when he puts pen to paper every summer, because hopefully Mark's here for the rest of his career, and he really is a standout, stellar British defenseman.
You know exactly what you're going to get with Mark, don't you? You get consistency and reliability, and though we probably all focused a bit on Hotham last season because of how great he was, Mark certainly was up around the same area for me. And as a D-man, he makes very few mistakes. His positional sense, obviously, is great. It's a great pairing for us to have. We're very fortunate.
And it's a British defenceman that you can put on a top D pairing to shut down opposition's top lines, top line players. And
Absolutely.
you know, how many British D-man can you say can do that?
No.
So.
Well, looks like we could be fortunate to have two of those, because Josh looks the real deal.
Yes, I think he'll grow and continue to grow into that role of, and I know we've got to move on from the defence, but I think we mentioned it in commentary, and I think Gareth and myself touched on it Sunday night. He's almost a unique British defenceman, and that he brings size, he brings that intimidation factor, but also his puck handling skills are very good. So you don't think of many other British defencemen who are sort of that full package. So again, hope Josh Batch grows with us throughout his career, but he could really be a real deal in terms of the British setup.
No, I agree. So behind the D, we've got Ben Bounds and Mike Will returning. We're fortunate to have the two of them returning, to be honest, because when you look at Mike Will, for instance, there's people have talked about Mike maybe could be a starting netminder somewhere else. We're very grateful, obviously, and glad that Mike's decided to come back with us. He obviously sees an opportunity there for him, and we've seen him a few times now in pre-season, and he's done very well. What do you make of the pair of them?
Well, I think probably will get that opportunity at some point in the next couple of years, I would think, because I think at the moment he's earning it, and I suspect, I mean, we don't know, we're just guessing here, that he might play a little bit more this season, because Todd Kalman has talked a lot about, how we see with the schedule and everything this year, everything is geared towards the Devils being able to win and given the best chance to win and win a league title as well, and compete across all competitions. So we might see Will play a bit more, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all, because every time he's come in, he's done well for the team. And I think with Bounds, it's just I think we mentioned it on commentary. It's easy to forget he's still 24 years old, and nowhere near we're a prime for a goaltender in that sense. And he's a guy who we hear is very eager to improve his game and learn. And obviously he went out with that goalie camp arranged by the ownership, and to me looks like he's come back a superior player to last year.
I think so. I think he just looks confident in his own skin. Again, we reference this in commentary sometimes. He's always been a talented netminder, but it was probably a little bit of a culture shock moving down from Hull in terms of facing a lot of rubber during the game and being busy continually, to all of a sudden maybe not being busy for prolonged periods, but having to make big saves or situational saves. And maybe early on, the first month, 6 weeks of last season, he struggled a little bit with that, being a little bit cold in a game perhaps, and one bad goal might go in a game. I think from sort of late October, November onwards, he just becoming more and more solid. By the time we got to the Challenge Cup final, well, he looked like a trophy-winning netminder, a netminder the Devils could base their future on for many years to come. Completely agree with Alid. Since he went to that goalie camp, I think he's come back. He just looks composed. There's no flopping around. It's an economy of movement. He looks solid in his net. He's getting his angles right. His puck playing, puck handling ability, I think, has been very good in the early weeks of the season. So I just think he feels he is a championship-winning netminder now, and he can backstop this team to greater things. Yeah.
I think very briefly before we move on to the next item, we probably should mention the work that Hudson's done through the summer with the players, and the look. Everybody's come in looking very sharp, very fit. So he's obviously done a great job for us. So thank you to Carl for the work he's done. So moving on to the next item, which is looking at the weekend's games. Impact over the weekend. I couldn't remember exactly how that applied. So
we'll just go straight in, I think.
Yeah, straight into Manchester then. So the new setup with some familiar players to us and some players we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
A GM that most of us are familiar with, a great chap, in Neil Russell, and playing out of a rink very similar to our own, same size ice exactly, slightly different arrangement on the outside of their arena. What did you make of them?
They were fast. They were very fast, and Todd Kelman made that comment himself when he came over to be interviewed in the first period break. It was a carbon copy of the Hull team last year, with perhaps a little bit more quality to it, and I don't mean that in any derogatory sense, because I liked watching Hull last year. I think you knew what you were going to get. You were going to get fast, enthusiastic forwards who could carry the puck well, who could forecheck well and create turnovers and scoring opportunities, and could just be pesky all night. And I think that's what Manchester were, especially that Scarcella line going out with Davis and Siska, wasn't it? That was the big line for Manchester. Thought they were very impressive, moved the puck very well, just very, very fast, and for 36, 37 minutes caused us a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just speed, wasn't it? You talk about how speed can work really well on the big ice, but it works really, really well on the small ice as well. And we saw that with what Doucette has done to the Devils, for Hull and Nottingham, being able to hit you on the counter, on the break, and within one pass and a few strides in on goal. And they had a few chances like that, didn't they? And then, we were sort of saying, well, at one point we were sort of thinking, well, the Devils are going to, they scored that one goal against the run of play there, because in the second period, I mean, okay, it looks 5-1 in the end, it was fairly convincing, but Bounds kept the Devils in that game in the second period, made some stellar saves, as did Kalemba down the other end. But then they got that one goal, and then, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but for Havato to then just put in that shift where he back-checked, he was the last back-checker, he cut out a pass that was a 2-on-1 situation, and then within the same shift he went up the other end of the ice and scored the game winner, game-winning goal in the end, I believe. Or was it the time goal? I'm not sure. But
So I'm trying to
recall maybe the time goal, but he scored in that same shift, and that just turned the momentum, didn't it? And that sounds like the character that we've been told he would be. And that was a big shift, and that I think that's going to happen to some teams. We just sort of exploded there for 2 or 3 minutes, and perhaps Manchester, familiar coach, but a lot of new players coming into the league. They just sort of got a little bit sucked up in the pressure of the situation, having really been on top in the game for that time. And then it was dead, really. The game was killed, especially when Kirk scored in the third.
I commented you in the commentary, and I think Omar Pasha was doing a great job in Manchester. It didn't look like he had a bench presence there in terms of an assistant coach or anything. I was surprised when it went 3-1. He perhaps didn't call a timeout and try and cut the momentum a little bit. But I think that it was interesting. It was reassuring from Devils' perspective that, although not playing well, as we've mentioned a couple of times, we've got those offensive weapons that we could just break the game open. I think that's reassuring for the rest of the season. So I think a lot of positives come out of Manchester. I think they were a fun team to watch, very fast. I think they're going to upset a lot of teams this season. But in a strange way, it was nice to look at the Devils and say, hey, we didn't play particularly well for 40 minutes, and we still walked off the ice or skated off the ice with a 4-1 lead. So that perhaps speaks to the offensive weapons and those that three-line punch we can roll.
No, but I agree. I was impressed with Manchester. I thought they played... they reminded me a bit of us last season, to be honest, the style of hockey that they played. And I believe that they're possibly their best forward had arrived too late for the game, and we'll get a chance to see... Is it Matt Correa? Yeah. We'll get a chance to see him down the line, but apparently he's an excellent player. They obviously had a great result on the Sunday after they played us. So good luck to everybody up in Manchester. I hope you have a great season, apart from when you play us, obviously. So moving on then, our good friends from Sheffield.
Yes.
Now we know that there's always been a bit of a love-hate relationship between us and Sheffield, and rivalry in ice hockey is not a bad thing.
No.
So we have a fairly strong rivalry there, and the game delivered as it normally does whenever the two sides meet, and the rivalries. And obviously, we kicked off. We had some interesting comments after the game as well. But what did you make? And we don't need to go into that because I think it's been covered. But what did you make of the game itself? And what did you make of the Sheffield team?
Well, you were watching so do you want to take this one first? Because you actually had the night off and watched it from the stands. So.
Yeah, well, we might have completely different views. Normally we share a similar view. When
that's always interesting.
Sat in the same seat, so this might be interesting. No, I thought they were good. I think possibly as it often seems to be with Sheffield, they may end up in some games lacking a little bit of size, but I thought, to be honest, they were probably a little bit more physical than us overall in that game, and they were fine in that regard. They looked extremely fast, and I thought possibly going into that game, we'd have perhaps a little bit more chemistry because we've got a very similar team to last year, and we've had a good build up and everything. But I think it did show the Champions League experience they've had, because perhaps where our guys are still just getting a little bit used to each other, particularly in terms of the passing and knowing where each other on the ice. The Steelers looked as though, they were 1-2 passes and they were very, very quick on the breakout.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be, they're going to be up there again. I like the way Paul Thompson sets up his teams. They're going to be exciting games to watch whenever the Devils play them this season, whether it's in Cardiff or Sheffield. And we know they've got a lot of quality that they brought back. Wah was kept off the score sheet, for points on the weekend, which is a massive thing for the Devils. I'm sure that was part of the Devils' game plan, but obviously I'm sure Rob Dowd is, as he scored, and he's going to perhaps have a little bit more freedom this year. He's getting a chance to play with the imports a little bit, a bit more, which is good, which is great for him and GB, and he's a high class player. And the goaltender is going to be good. So I think one area we sort of said perhaps we felt they might sort of struggle against us at least a little bit, and some of the slightly bigger teams, is just that we both felt that Dustin Cohn and Bob Baldwin played a big role for them in terms of allowing latterly Josh Eunice to see the puck and not allow our guys in and good shooting lanes.
No, I'd agree with that. Yeah, and just to touch on that point, I think Josh Eunice did a sterling job for them last year. But I think if you're going to win the league with Josh Eunice in net, your defence and your team defence is probably doing something right. So I think although Baldwin and Cohen was sometimes not thought about in the highest regard in terms of foot speed and things like that, I think they probably did a good job clearing the net and certainly Sheffield have sort of gone down the mobility route on their defence this year rather than size. So maybe that's an area where we can take advantage, or other teams can take advantage. Certainly Salters had quite an impact returning on the Sunday. But no, I would agree with Aled. I pains me to say, as a Cardiff fan, I was actually quite impressed by Sheffield. I thought they've got some good mobile puck-moving defensemen. I was particularly impressed by Moya, who I think brings veteran leadership. I thought he looked very good on the power play. Even though they were only 2 from 9, I thought he moved the puck very, very well. And then, they've brought back the core of a championship-winning side, and they've added some pieces to it. Funnily enough, although Duco got on the score sheet, I wanted to see a little bit more from him. Levi Nelson I was quite impressed with. I thought he centred the second line well, moved the puck well, had good vision. And it allowed what Thompson has done, which perhaps Jared Adams didn't previously do. He as you said, Aled, he had that big, impactful first line, and whether there was so much behind that, I think Thompson has juggled the lines a little bit. Mosienko was playing down the lineup, in fact, on the third line, and I'm a big fan of his. And again, you just had balanced scoring and 3 lines that could really cause a threat. So, Sheffield Steelers are the Sheffield Steelers. They're going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season.
No, I agree. I think that'll definitely be the case. They're always a handful. They're always a good side. They'll be well drilled into Thompson. So. But
just to reiterate, though, again, I think it was clear tactically, and I think it was probably the right decision because it's still early season, and it's relatively easy to set up a trap system with when you haven't had a lot of training sessions together, and that's what we did, and we scored those 2 goals, and then we just sort of and we did. Cancel out a lot of chances, and although the shot count was high, there were very few, particularly in the second period, very few clear-cut chances on bounds. But the third period, obviously, there were a couple of penalty calls as well. And Sheffield, if you keep banging on the door, you're going to get there, and you get a couple of power plays as well. Eventually, one's going to go in, and. But what was really impressive was, as soon as we conceded that goal, a goal. Twice we went back up the other end, and within moments we had that advantage again.
Well, we know it's going to be a character team because the Andrew Law team is a character team, but we have that offensive punch to back it up from all 3 lines. So I don't think we're ever going to be out of any game, and you can really sort of back us in a lot of situations that we're going to have that offensive weaponry in order to do some damage. So no, I thought it was a good game. I thought the defensive zone coverage and the team defense was far better on Sunday night than it was on the Saturday night. I thought there was some great shot blocking, some real character performances. I thought Tyson Marsh really led the troops, and Andrew Lord and Joey Martin were throwing themselves in front of pucks. No, it was a good game, and I think anyone who tuned into the webcast, hopefully thoroughly enjoyed it.
We probably should mention Morris Het in there somewhere as well, because we kind of missed him out somehow. But he goes.
I mentioned him earlier.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I do apologise,
a
Alex.
lot earlier, though.
How was it?
So, yeah.
The car park.
He's another of those players who goes about his business quietly, but very, very, very well. his positional play obviously is great. He's a great shot blocker, a very hard worker.
He's scoring goals.
Yeah.
And he's the same player as he was last year. He's
Yeah.
finding a way into the areas to score goals, and he's made numerous shot blocks over the course of the weekend as well.
Well, he's probably, you know, and I know I'm biased, but I think he's one of the best, if not the best, penalty killer in the league.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that's backed up by Zach Abarto as well, who I think brings a lot of elements of that in
Yeah.
terms of the penalty killing and being aggressive on the penalty kill. So not that I want the Devils to take penalties, but it is something that, you know, we've got the players to be able to manage.
No, special teams looks very good this season. So moving on, and briefly, what do you make of the game schedule? Obviously, we started off with cup games, and then we've got a Saturday and Sunday balance through this season. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, we've got playing Nottingham at home on Saturday and Sheffield away on Sunday. So that means the first 4 competitive games of the season are all cup games, and I think that's a genius bit of scheduling, to be honest, because the Challenge Cup is something where you can not go particularly well in, if that does happen, in the group stages and still qualify, which is the be-all and end-all from that. Obviously, it's nice to finish higher up to get a favourable draw. But it sort of almost allows, and this is probably taking a step too far, almost allows for a bit of an extended pre-season, if you get my point with that, then heading into the league games where every game has to be looked at as a must-win.
Yeah. Well, I think we shied away from it last year, and I can understand why. That we didn't want to talk ourselves up in terms of competing for trophies and things like that. It was a new ownership, and the team had only been put together in sort of 6-7 weeks. I think it's different this season. I think there's a level of expectation, and I think that starts from management. And you know, I interviewed Todd Kelman on Saturday, and I asked him the question, you know, what is the aspiration this season? And he said, well, to win everything. And I think little things like the fixture list, well, it's not a little thing, but elements such as that reflect that. We've spoken in commentary about the fact that Todd mentioned he wanted the Scottish triple header before Christmas, because he says that takes a lot out of the guys, and he doesn't want that happening leading into the business end of the season. I think Alid's absolutely right. I think potentially you can play not as well in the Challenge Cup and still get through the group. So I think this allows us to continue that process of bedding into the season. I think everything is designed this year, having the spare imports or you know, already there, although Chris Culligan's not fit yet, but everything is designed to give this Devils team the best possible chance of competing on all fronts come the end of the season, and I think that's great. The fact that a winning mentality is back in Cardiff is you know, music to my ears.
No, I agree. The planning has been exceptional, I think, for this year. So, moving on, next weekend, or this coming weekend now, we play Nottingham at home and then our good friends at Sheffield away. So,
well, we're unbeaten so far, so in the cup and including pre-season, 6 from 6. So it's important to keep the winning habit going. I think, you know, especially the Panthers game out. If you win your home games in the Challenge Cup, you'd expect to qualify. Nottingham probably haven't had as good a preparation as the Devils have had. They haven't got as many returnees, and also there's 3 or 4 players coming late. We understand Cam Jansen will be in for the weekend. Yeah. Hopefully, he plays on Saturday, because that it's a good sign for the league as far as I'm concerned, and it'll be good for Devils fans to see on Saturday. I have a feeling that Moran and Schultz, who are going to be 2 of their high-end players, only came in last week. Maybe played. I don't think they played in pre-season. No. There might be 1 or 2 other players in there as well. So they've got a lot of high-caliber players. They've got potentially 4 lines. A lot of good quality Brit players as well. But I think with the preparation we've had, I'd like to think that that should be a game that the Devils should win on Saturday.
I'm really intrigued to see Nottingham this year, because I like Corey Nielsen's sort of mentality as a coach. I think he's very driven, and he expects the best. He himself, you know, was a player who wanted to play in every situation and was ultra professional in the way he prepared, and I think he wants his teams to be like that. But Nottingham can sometimes be a hard city to play in. You know, there's expectations on you, and they've got a roster there that's pretty stacked, and they can play 4 lines, and they've got, you know, the best Brit pack in the league. but it's how those expectations are going to be managed, how Corey's going to manage those, I guess, those egos in the dressing room, because there's a lot of guys who have played top-end hockey, and of course they're used to playing four-line hockey and things like that, but he's going to have to manage certain ice time factors and egos and British players who want to play up the lineup and things like that. So I'm really intrigued by Nottingham in terms of, on paper, they look a fantastic roster. They've obviously got a superb setup in that arena and all the benefits that come from playing there. But just whether they can put a 50-game season together in terms of winning the league, Saturday's going to be the first chance to watch them, and I'm really intrigued to see what the makeup of that team is and what the character of that team is.
No, I agree. I think it'll be interesting to see how they go. I think they had some unfortunate incidents, obviously, before the season started, where players who'd signed for them, unfortunately, didn't arrive, and maybe the style of the team isn't exactly what Corey had in mind before. But as I agree, that'll be interesting to see how they do. Then we've got Sheffield away. Obviously, we've seen Sheffield and discussed them at length. Probably the main point of interest is how will we do on big ice.
Yeah, well, we don't really know, I suppose, is the answer. I mean, we look good in Coventry, which is bigger ice. I think we expect the Devils to be more competitive on the bigger ice this year than last year with the team makeup. But in all likelihood, it's going to take a few games for the players to adjust, who've been practicing now and playing on in the big blue tent on the small ice for what was it, 3-4 weeks now. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it'll be interesting. I'm sure Sheffield they've got a lot of speed. They're going to utilise that. Their power play looks improved this year. I know our penalty kill was extremely good on Saturday, so that nullified it to a degree. But it's going to be better, and Paul Thompson, who ran a good power play in Coventry as well, and when he was coach at GB. So that's going to be interesting on the big ice. And I don't think we can, we're not. We want, obviously the Devils' expectation is to win every game, but at the same time, if the Devils win on Saturday and put in a respectable performance on Sunday, given that it's in the cup as well, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I wouldn't add much to that. I think we've got a team that can play big ice, but a lot of it is decision making, and it's going to take a period or two to get back into that. When defensemen can pinch in, their body position in relation to the boards and closing down a skating lane, that extra couple of steps you've got to take. Bend bounds again, it's a different kind of angles and what have you. So a lot of it is just going to be decision making. It might take a period or two, but I fully expect over the course of the season the Devils will be fine on big ice.
Yeah, no, I agree. So to conclude